Well, welcome everybody. I welcome you also. Thank you for being here. We do these technology opportunities, kind of fireside chat kind of things, at least monthly. And we're excited to bring these companies in, have a chance to share what they're doing with you. So tonight, our speaker is Daniel Sharp. What up, Daniel? Daniel's the founder and CEO of Apothewell, and we'll hear all about that as we go forward here. But a little bit of his background is he's been system architect for a large local company for what, 18 years or so, something like that. Acxiom, worked at FIS for a few years. He's had his own development shop, so he's been out there in the technology field for a number of years with a lot of background. So we'll hear some more about that as we go forward. So Daniel, let's take a seat.
Yep.
Be comfortable.
So
Yeah, grab that. I need to turn it on. Okay, so why don't we start off with just tell us a little bit more about your background. I kind of stole the highlights there, but go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna want to put my foot up all night long, and it's just not gonna work out. So usually when I give a background, I do mostly what James just did and try to move on. But if we're really gonna understand how I got to be a founder, I was gonna give you more of a real answer to my background. So we have to start that conversation with something I don't normally bring up, but I am dyslexic. Sorry, I have dyslexia. One of those phrases define who I am, and the other one simply mentions that I have a condition. So I have dyslexia. Didn't know this for the longest period of time, but the relevant part about this for this discussion is that formal education was not something that I was good at or enjoyed, for that matter. Went through a rural school system in Arkansas in the 70s, and dyslexia was just not a word that anybody mentioned that time. When you go through that one, they don't intend to, but they accidentally take your learning difference and make you believe it's a disability. So, you know, I came out of that system. Now, one of the good things about this, and it sounds strange to say there's good sides of having dyslexia, but the truth is there's good pieces. One of them is I know how to grind, that determination piece. Nothing came easy to me from the get-go, and at this point I'm just used to grinding that determination. And then the other one is problem solving. I did not learn like everybody else. I was held to the same standard, but could not simply take in information. So the ability to set and figure out how to get this information in was my first step inside of problem solving. And it's that skill set that I just keep repeating. But that background piece. So having dyslexia, I did not want to continue my education outside of high school. What I wanted to do was something interesting, because I'm an intelligent, capable person, and I did not want to go to school because school was not comfortable for me, and I wasn't comfortable with them either. I had come out of high school not wanting to be around people who were in that academic setting. Joined the Air Force. Now, my recruiter, when I walked in the door at the Air Force, my recruiter was uninterested. Until I took the ASVAB. So one of the things that my version of dyslexia, my spatial abilities, I have really good spatial abilities. I had no idea that I had good spatial abilities. My ASVAB, one of the pieces on the ASVAB tests spatial abilities. I scored 98% in that one, just a nice spike on it. And suddenly my recruiter was my best friend. They were looking for people like me to join the Air Force and do avionics on fighter jets. And then, of course, I was like, fighter jets, sign me up. I mean, please, would love to go do this. So they gave me a 6-year enlistment, 2 stripes coming out of basic training, and then a promise of going to Denver for tech school. Now, the tech school, I wasn't real excited about it, but avionics, I was willing to go through. It was something interesting. I did fine in basic training. I came out, come to find out I loved tech school. The tech school was a 6-month process that compressed what was basically an electrical engineering degree. But because it was compressed and given that military kind of standpoint, I just soaked that in, loved everything about it. Came out of that well. I was actually second in my class, and between you and me, I should have been first. This is the argument I had then. I still have it now. I'm still a little upset that I'm not first, but got to my first duty station and come to find out avionics on fighter jets is about holding flashlights. Watching somebody else do work, and if you finally get your hands on it, it's just not exciting. It's swapping components. So I did a few years in the Air Force, got out, went to college. I had finally come to the point that if I was going to do something interesting, I was going to have to finally face the college piece, go through that one. I got my computer science degree out of UCA, and then went in and spent almost 20 years at Acxiom. Now, in that 20 years, data engineering. I didn't know it was called data engineering back in '96 when I started, but this is what I did for all those years at Acxiom. And Malcolm Gladwell suggests that you need 10,000 hours to master something. I've got 20,000 hours in data engineering. I'm good at this piece. Left Acxiom, went to FIS for a couple of years, ran their open source software governance program. But through all this, there's a realization that corporations and me, we just don't quite line up that well. Their interest and my interest differ. So I struck out on my own doing contract work, still data engineering, but then also getting to be a founder. So sorry for that long-winded answer.
Okay, well, let me kind of piggyback on that. So you're the founder of a corporation now. So and the CEO. So when did you discover you wanted to be a founder, and you just kind of explained how that experience went through the corporation, but when did that thought process kind of crystallize for you?
So again, I always wanted to do something interesting. I like a good challenge. I get bored easily if I don't have that. Corporations don't often want to give you those good challenges, setting out it. So, I always knew I wanted to do something more, but coming out of that formal education system, having dyslexia, and being, when everybody else in the room is saying that's the right answer, and you're going, no, that's the right answer, takes a little bit of being right before you finally believe that, no, my way of thinking, even though it's different, is not only worthwhile, but right. I mean, not that there's this wrong per se, though it is. Can I come to that spot? So I always wanted to do something interesting. I never thought I could be a founder simply because I didn't think I had that skill set. It just took me a handful of years to realize I've got the perfect skill set to be a founder. I think differently. I view the world differently. I want to come up with solutions that nobody else has come up with.
Well, you're in good state for that, because there's a lot of really famous big thinker problem solvers that thought differently. So congratulations on that. So let's talk about Apothewell a little bit. I know you were inspired by a fellow named Philip. So tell us about Philip.
So Philip is my stepson. Philip is 33 now. Doing the math, making sure he's 33. I have been his stepdad for about 13 years. But when Philip was 9, he was playing at a friend's house, fell, hit his head on a windowsill, and had a closed traumatic brain injury. Now that injury left him with a severe seizure disorder and a cognitive delay. So Phil must take, and it ranges, sometimes it's 8 prescriptions, sometimes it's 11 prescriptions, 12 prescriptions, but about 20 pills a day Phil has to take to manage this. And he has to take them. If Phil stops taking this medication, his seizures come back inside of a day. So it's really critical that it happens. And Phil's cognitive delay made it impossible for him to manage this. So, that looking at trying to manage those pieces, and especially when I came in, I thought, and I'm good. I'm that person who does structure and routine because it makes me happy. So I took over managing his medications. In the first few months, I thought this isn't that hard, and then I got it wrong. And then I got it wrong again. And I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And this is how, and I say this phrase quite a bit. The truth of the matter is managing medications. It's a distributed and chaotic problem. You have to deal with multiple doctors, multiple medications coming from different places, and they change constantly. It's very chaotic. This is that spot that makes it very hard to deal with all of those. And it's that Phil is where I finally understood, especially after years of looking, there's not really a solution to this problem out in the market when I needed it. Nobody else had solved it. And this is how I got to the spot of it's time for me to solve it.
Okay, well, tell us about solving it. So what's the solution here?
Okay, so Apothewell started initially with, this concept. In case y'all haven't figured it out, I'm kind of that geek. I'm always looking for cool engineering problems. I'd come across a nice tutorial from a gentleman named Miguel Greensburg. His tutorial was about how to use microcontrollers and MicroPython to manage those. And by the way, if you're into microcontrollers or programming at all, it's a great tutorial. Just Google Michael Greensburg, sorry. So that tutorial, I finished it, and this is little, make a little breadboard, you put the chip on it, and wires going everywhere, and when you push the button, it gave you the temperature and the humidity. I finished the little project. I put it on my windowsill because I was proud of it. I push the button every few days. But I'm dealing with the problem of Philip. A couple times a day this is coming up. It's always on my mind. And then, one time a week we've got to deal with refills, getting his pill case up. It's always right there. Looking at this piece, always thinking about Philip, is where I finally had that moment of the real solution for Philip is a piece of hardware and software combined. It's not just a piece of hardware, because those pieces of hardware, they're too limited. And it's not just a piece of software, because it's too limited, mostly. We'll get around to that one. But that moment of seeing that entire system of solve this problem for Philip, and it's the hardware component that houses the medication, it keeps that medication over here and keeps Philip from having it when he's not supposed to. Phil will occasionally get confused on the day of the week, and it's Wednesday, 6 o'clock, rolls around, he takes his medication. He falls asleep in his chair. His medication, especially evening, makes him very drowsy. He'll wake up at 8 in a panic that he has forgot to take his medications. He'll think it's Thursday. He'll go into his pill case and he'll take Thursdays. And now we all go to the ER because Phil's taking their narcotics. It's a serious list of medications. So, I need something that would keep Philip from getting his pills until it's time, but also something with the flexibility that when Phil's going out this group at 5, that he can call me and say, I need to take my pills early tonight. And I can say yes. Phil can't have that responsibility because, again, Phil will get confused on the night of the week and he will go to extraordinary efforts to take his medications on time. So just because this thing is telling him it's not time yet, he's not going to believe it. If he has access to it, he's going to take his medications. That's the other part. I need to know if Bill's trying to get access to it. I need this piece of hardware to communicate to me, not just to Phil. And I need it to give alerts on his phone and my phone. That thing beeping in his bathroom doesn't really solve anything unless he happens to be in his bathroom when it's beeping. The chances are that he's 3 rooms away or 3 miles away. Just not what's going on, and I'm definitely not next to it. So I need something that's going off on my phone, letting me know it's time for Phil to take his medications, letting Phil know, letting his mother know, all of us in it. I need to be treated as if I'm important in this process instead of secondary in this process. And every other solution out there treats caregivers as if they're secondary at best. So that system with that alerting, that last alert I need, by the way, is when Phil goes and interacts with that pill case and takes the pills and it's time and he gets them out. I need a message saying, all's good, you can relax for the next hour. Phil is taking his medications like he's supposed to. Then I say hour because we're going to start worrying again about something else, but at least I get some moment of knowing, okay, we're good for the night, everything is okay. Now, you know, that's that first piece. We really quickly realize that there's another solution sitting out here with a virtual pill case that we can solve for a much larger audience, but our aha moment focused on the hardware to begin with.
Okay, well, you know, Phil sounds like, forgive me, but one of the more extreme cases. Many of us have dealt with an aging parent or some other kind of relative who slowly moves off into different kinds of dementia, and then all of a sudden may not be taking their medication correctly, or not taking it, or doubling up, or whatever. So that sounds like a really large population that might need this solution.
There's a large, and not everybody in that population needs that piece of hardware. Now, it would have been simpler for us to come out and require everybody to use hardware. But the reality is, with some investigation and some research, we have figured out how to solve for 90% of that population a system on their phone. And what we really did, by the way, is we went out here and we realized that the hospital solved medication adherence, right? Hospitals, they're near perfect adherence, and there's nobody doing it better than them. The problem is, once you leave the hospital, their system falls apart. It only works inside their boundaries. So we figured out how to take their system, make it work in the real world as a structured processes, and then we built an app around that one it's guardrails to keep somebody inside that system, teach them the system, make them go through those processes and keep them online, so that we close that entire gap. You know, one of our mottos is we pick up where the healthcare industry leaves off. Because once you're outside the pharmacy, the doctor's good, the pharmacy is good, but at the last spot in this process that you get help, once you have your medications and you go home, you're on your own, and you shouldn't be. It's a little absurd that your hand is held so well, and then nothing.
So help us understand how a caregiver would figure out whether they just need the software or whether they need the software and the hardware.
The real differentiation here is, you know, for Philip's got that cognitive delay, so that he gets confused. If somebody has and what we're going to say in most of the population is somebody who has the early stages of dementia, but still is managing at home, they need that piece that's going to say, no, You absolutely can't have it. And that alert come back out to the caregivers. But if you're, and you know, and this is the thing that most people, I think, dismiss unless you get in this situation. I don't care how capable you are, how intelligent you are, how focused on this problem you are. You're going to get this wrong. Is this problem happens every day of your life for the rest of your life. There's no days off, there's no holidays for it. In just simple math. Well, and one of the great phrases, I love this one. I think it was Netflix, might have been LinkedIn who said it. Look, if you write a piece of code and it only breaks one time in a million, well, that happens about 3 times an hour inside their system, right? So we're not dealing with this kind of scale, but the reality is that okay is not good enough. So what we're really doing out here for this group of people who are quite capable of managing themselves is we're offering that structure and stability around it to take some of that burden off and take you from that 60 or 70%. And I hate to tell you this, but the out in the real world for the people who can manage medications, they're hitting about 60% adherence. Taking them from that 60 to 70 up to that 90, 95%, well above it. Because again, nothing is perfect. But with our system, we can get you so much closer, and you have to be at least over 75% for treatments to work, right? This is what your doctor's actually getting you to, and most population isn't making it.
Okay, well, we see a lot of founders and startups here, obviously. And we see them come in various stages along the development period. So tell us how far along you are with your product and kind of what the history of the company's been up to this point and when it's going to be available.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've got, we started with this concept where we are, we moved, we've realized the hospital system, we've been to the phone. What we've also started doing is, and it took us a minute, and it's that thing when you look back in hindsight, you think, how did we not see this instantly? To realize that hospitals are actually the place where we need to be targeting. Hospitals, and it's that drastic night and day. Because again, hospitals, when you're inside their system, not only do they cover this, they have complete insight. Once you walk out that door, they are completely blind as to what's going on, and they pay a heavy price for this. Readmissions cost a hospital $1 to $3 million a year, and most readmissions are due to medication non-adherence. So what we have started focusing on now is working with hospitals, assisted living facilities, and getting them to respond. I don't know if anybody's in the medical field. HRRP, the Healthcare Readmission Reduction Program. Congress passed this law in 2012, and it penalizes hospitals for readmissions. There's one of 6 conditions, or any of 6 conditions that a patient might be readmitted for. So today we're focused there. We are launched though. We have an app on the App Store. Download it today. You go out and search Apothewell. One of the reasons we love the name Apothewell is if you search it, we're the only result that comes up. Search it, download it today, use it. It is a fully live system.
Well, that's awesome. So that's great progress. So what are the next steps for Apothewell?
So, and again, kind of go back and look to see where we've come from. Go out to our website, apothewell.com/mission. You can see where we've started. You can start to see where we're going. Again, pull the app down. You can see where we're at today, and we've got a real solution today to answer the question of where we're heading in the future. We're focused on hospitals, trying to solve that problem, assisted living facilities. Then also, let me give you what I think is, real reality of where we can get in a few years. We filed a patent actually yesterday. We filed the non-provisional on this patent. It is on hardware components, but what it's really focused on is load guidance inside that hardware. So the thing that, again, everybody's really missing is managing your medications isn't just about making sure you take them on time. You have to make sure that you are taking the correct medication at the right time. If you can't get your medications loaded in your pill case correctly, you're not taking the right ones. Our load guidance, again, if you've got one pill a day, it's not that hard to load your pill case and know if you've got it right. If you've got 13 prescriptions, come to find out, it is really easy to get that wrong. So our load guidance gives you that piece. We take the information off the pill bottle. We take what your pill case looks like, and then we give you a virtual representation of that pill case, and we guide you one medication at a time exactly how to load that. Our patent covers that, and our patent covers augmented reality. So Apple is working on a pair, and Google had a Google AR glasses. Apple's got another version coming out of it. Imagine this world, right? You have gone to your doctor, your doctor's written your prescription, changed your medication, added one, taken one away, increased, reduced. When you go to the pharmacy to pick up that prescription, already your Apothewell app has that information updated inside of it. When you go home wearing your AR glasses and pull that pill bottle out, it recognizes what medication that you have in your hand. And when you look at your pill case, it actually overlays what you need to do to that pill case on top of it. Shows you which doors you need to open, what medications you need to take out, what medications you need to add. And that's the kind of thing that, and again, other solutions you look at, they sound really slick, they sound really cool, but they only work in these narrow slices when everything's going exactly right. The system we built here and imagined and created and filed patents on are about handling things no matter how they go. Keeping on top of those things always.
So are there more than the one patent?
There is. We have been granted a patent. It's actually about one of the core pieces in our system, the temporal aspect of managing medications and pill bottles, and the methods and structures you have to have inside that for the programming to not get strange. And we've got that patent granted. We just filed the non-provisional on this one. We have a provisional filed on blister pack technology. A lot of nursing facilities, assisted living home facilities use blister packs, and blister packs save a lot of this problem. They create a handful of problems as well. And they come out when, you know, you've loaded a blister pack for 30 days and a week into it, your doctor changes your medication. Now, what do? And this is one of the reasons why we didn't start with blister packs, because this is a hard problem. And you've got three choices at this point. You can either completely unload that blister pack and deal with your medications yourself, and that's an unadvisable situation because how are you going to know which either one of those pills is supposed to be? Or if they've added medications, you can add another blister pack, but now you've got to remember that you've got the blister pack you're taking and you've got the second blister pack that you need to deal with. But worse, if they've taken medications away, now you have to remember every time you're in this blister pack. Now you might have 3 or 4 of these things for a day, but you've got to remember on the second one that when you take the medications out, you have to take this pill out of it. And some of these pills, I mean, how many people have seen a round white pill? This is a real problem, but our solution, our hardware around that one is intended to increase, especially if you've added another pill, to increase adherence, reminding people that this pill exists in the blister pack and it's time to take it.
Okay, well, it's obviously a huge problem. Sounds like you've got a really good solution to it. So it'll be fun watching where you go with this. Well, oftentimes when we have an early stage company come in, they're maybe raising some funds. Are you doing that?
So we are raising funds. Now, talked about this AR piece. This is where we really want to start raising funds around the hardware piece. Today, we're still trying to get that traction inside of hospitals, and we're raising some money. Please talk to us. But in a handful of months is when we intend to come out and really start raising money as we want to move more into the hardware piece and get wrapped up for it.
So what are you trying to get right now?
Right now, we've got 30,000. We need to finish out our current round. We pitched to the Arkansas Economic Development Commission last month and was awarded a $50,000 loan from them. So that actually finished out most of our current round for us.
So I'm not promoting, this is not a pitch, but so this round may be the opportunity to get in at the really low valuation, right?
My
So
goal,
somebody might want to pick up a piece of.
My goal is to move the valuation of this company as quickly as I can up so that when I take more money, that money doesn't have as much value to the investor, but also gives me, have to take away less of my company, right? That standard game everybody's playing.
Right. That's the game between the investor and the founders and the existing stockholders. So do you have a little demo you can show us?
I do, absolutely. And I think we've got, and I can actually show you, oh yeah. Because guess what? It's time for Philip to take his medications. Oh, and I do, I have a message. So as they're getting this set up, oh yeah, over there. Okay, and yeah, this is my live phone, so apologies if I'm. But if you'll notice, there's you can see that Carl is pulling my lawn, and then also that it's not Philip take his medications, and that Philip's also texted me, let me know. So Phil has a cognitive delay, right? And I get this question quite a bit. What about somebody who's not good on technology with a phone? What do? Well, the answer is most people know how to text, use a phone, and this is all you need to do. Philip texts me twice a day. Hey, Dad, my meds are taken. And then surprising, I didn't realize this starting out. This is a beautiful opportunity for me and Phil to communicate. Got your meds taken, love you, buddy, have a good day. And then if something's going wrong, Phil gets a chance to talk to me, tell me what's going on. And this is one of our pitches for assisted living facilities. As people start moving out of their homes and they're needing that connection, this is a great way for them to stay connected with their families, back and forth and caregivers. So anyway, what you're looking at, you notice like I clicked the medication for Phil. It instantly brings me up to his profile on my phone. And then it shows where his medications are. I'm going to click OK. He took them, so I'm going to click all taken. That part's done. Right? So the actual taking medications, straightforward. But let me show you some of the features inside the app. So again, and we're looking at Philip's line information. There's nothing here that I'm not willing to share, just letting you know that this is, we're looking at a live system I'm actually using today for Philip. First, you can see his medication list sitting out here. Now you notice there's an orange dot where I actually got a release coming out on this next week, where that dot's going to start pulsing, really drawing some attention to it, because there's an action that needs to be taken here. And I can't say these names. Officer goodbyes at 10. Thank you. It has 6 days left on it. His fingerprint has 6 days. Now notice also on the dashboard, I was getting this alert over here, and if I click and go in, those come straight at the top, right? We're keeping track of his medication, and then you might be thinking, okay, right, my pharmacy's handling this for me. They have auto refills, and I pick them up. If you want to double dose of medication, start auto refills with your pharmacy, because you're going to wind up with more pill bottles than you intended, and there's a number of ways this is gonna happen. But when you've got 2 or 3 of the same medication sitting in that gallon Ziploc bag that you're pulling out of, you are eventually going to load that twice in your pill case and you're going to double dose. So the auto refills from pharmacies, it sounds like a great thing. In practice, it does not work. Our system is actually taking the medication, and as you mark them taken, it's decrementing them then. So if Phil misses a day, we don't decrement the count. We're keeping up with it. And there's also mechanisms inside of this that when things get awry, we can come in and take care of it. Because just like in a hospital, when things don't go the way they're supposed to, that nursing staff comes in and fixes all those things. Well, that's what caregivers are doing inside this system. We intentionally gave them enough flexibility to come in and manage those pieces. So, I can add his medications, his pill cases. So let me take you there. I'm not going to finish this out because again, this is a live system and I don't want to mess it up because I'm going to take on it. But here is Phil's pill case, and Phil's pill case is blue on the bottom and purple on the top. It's twice a day. It looks just like this. And his medication that might be pronounced Riviac. Here's how you're supposed to load it. Here's his, and I'm not going to say it. Here's his other medication. Notice he takes 1 in the morning and 1.5 in the evening. We're guiding through that process as well. His multivitamin all takes in the morning. Do I have, okay. This one created me some problems for a while. Usually if you only load a medication 1 time a day, it goes in the morning. And after you do this for a decade, you can't help but have that muscle memory about how to load it this way. And I've done this more than once. But this piece helped keep me to remind that all 4 of his medications go in the evening. And this is, and I'm not, it has something to do with keeping his seizures down, but it makes him very drowsy. It's why they wanted to take all of them in the evening. Now, if the first was coming up, Bill takes a vitamin D 1 time a month. So keeping up with the medications you're supposed to take weekly, and it's hard, it gets hard because there's a repetitive nature to it. Keeping up with the medications you take once a month, that one's just tough. Because how many days go by? And especially you have to consider in this process, if we go back, notice that here's a pill case that I can load. As soon as I load this one, the next one below it, I'll be able to load. We don't want you managing a single pill case. We want you managing 2 pill cases. I'm always loading pill cases for Philip for next week. And the reason you do this, and everybody's going to go, oh, so I say this, but it's amazing how long it took us to realize this and how nobody else has gotten to it. If you want to manage your refills, you have 2 pill cases. You have the pill case you're working on today. And then on Sunday, when you swap out the next week's pill case, that's when you start loading the following week's pill case. That gives you an entire week to know what pills you've got to go get refilled for. It gives you an entire week to get them on hand. Because sometimes it takes a handful of days. Bill takes a lot of narcotics. Every 6 months, the doctor must rewrite that prescription. Well, that means the pharmacy must call the doctor's office, leave a message with the nurse. The nurse must take that message and go through whatever process they go internally to get that back, and then call the pharmacy back with a new prescription. We've had that process take 5 days. If you do that on a Friday, dating medications starting on the following Sunday, you've got no hope of doing that one. So the 2 pill case thing back and forth, and that's what we allow inside of this one. So my point, sorry to get off on that one, is I'm loading next week's pill case, and I have to know that the first is next week and keep up with that and put his bill in there. This system just tells me it's next week. So got that one at the dashboard. Let me pop out here real quick though and show you I'm actually managing myself inside of this as well. And on my phone, I've switched to my profile. Caregivers inside of our system are primary users. You don't get to be treated as an afterthought. I've got just as much power and control as Philip does. And I want to deal with Philip, and you can see my wife is in here as well, but I'm not gonna show you her information, and she's gonna thank me for that. But you can see I can switch, and I look like I'm Philip inside this mode, and that's very intentional. So that I can manage everything about him from mine. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, we can go through a lot more, but I don't want to get too deep into this one. I think we're done with this one.
Really interesting, so you can see that it does exist and it's active and it's being used. Let's open it up for questions here. Let's go. Yes.
So it's an interesting question, and it's not, we've tried to, and we've spent a lot of time trying to make it very straightforward to use. And if you'll look this down, that person right there, Deanie, she is our CXO, our customer experience officer. She's more than happy to help you get this set up, because we realize that there is just a little learning curve to get across it. That learning curve is more about being intimidated by the system. And the fact that what we've done is actually revolutionary. Nobody else has done it this way. And since nobody else has done it this way, everybody comes at it expecting it to be so much more difficult. It's that getting a shot from your doctor. The anticipation of that is actually much worse than getting a shot. The anticipation of how hard our system is going to be your biggest problem.
Case management of someone like our family as an elderly person with growing dementia is getting worse. And we had the very problem that you're talking about. The adherence is difficult for an elderly person with dementia. And then we've got my siblings trying to help manage that from remote locations, almost somewhere else. And we can't be there with her. So.
But you worry about it every day, don't you?
Well, and we call, and if she answers,
yes,
did you take her, right? That's what we're dealing with. We're not the only family who has that kind of problem.
Absolutely. So this is why our learning system, and I didn't go into this one, but if you give me just a minute. What we actually do, Philip at 6 o'clock tonight got a reminder on his phone. I didn't get one, Faith didn't get one on mine. At 6:10, Philip got another reminder. And these are 2 chances for him to take his medications. At 6:20, that message you saw on my phone, I get that. Faith got it at the number 1. That process every 10 minutes now repeats up to 6 hours. We just continue with these every 10 minutes. Hey, it's time. And it's, if it, Philip's getting the, hey, Philip, it's time to take your medications. I'm getting the, hey, it's time for Philip to take his medications. Because what we've discovered is that burden of worry is much more, it creates much more of an issue than having a notification every 10 minutes that reminds you, I was not taking her medications, somebody needs to call. And you don't have to, should I or shouldn't, this kind of piece. So
She won't use herself. Not getting
and
we just tell that.
you just have to call, but at least you've got the reminder coming in to let you know. We've got plans in the future of text messaging, also using web-based systems so that we can bring people in who don't want to install the app to get the alert notifications. And then, they can text back to say they took them, they can just call you and say, make these stupid annoying things stop. That kind of thing. But I mean, there's definitely challenges inside of it, but yeah.
Oh, so I was gonna ask if I could talk to you for a couple of minutes. I'm actually a psychiatrist. So I wanted to ask you some kind of more advanced, in-depth questions, but I didn't think everybody falls.
So I would love to talk in Daniel@apothewell.com is my email.
Okay.
And if you go to apothewell.com, there's an info@apothewell.com website. If you send an email to that one and you're not somebody trying to sell me something, it will make it my way. I'm sorry, that's my silly joke. If you if you're feeling lonely in the world, put yourself on LinkedIn as a founder, and suddenly you've got people coming out of the woodwork.
I just want to say that you're a genius. So I don't know if people don't all the time.
Thank
My grandmother was alive. I know how hard it is for the elderly to listen to young people or technology. So I think this is awesome. I think this is something that our family could really use. And so I just want to say thank you, basically, and God bless you in your journey and your family that you're having.
Thank you, thank you. You see me blushing.
You may have covered this with mobility, mobility. You're out moving around, where's the pillbox? You get a notice, but your schedule is you're in your automobile, you're going somewhere, or you're already somewhere in an office or whatever.
So today, and it's part of the reason why we've got this 6 hour of notifications. You know, if you're 6 o'clock and you're out shopping or you're having dinner, we give you the ability to snooze the alarm. You know, so I know I'm going to be up for the next hour. So don't send me these every 10 minutes, snooze it, but then come back around and start sending them once you're home again. Now, coming up in the future, what we would love to do is, so geofence. When you get in your car and turn it on, if you've got an iPhone, Apple will tell you how many minutes it's going to be to get to work, or wherever you're going, right? So what's going on is your phone is connected to the Bluetooth system of your car, and it knows you're about to go somewhere. We want to tie in this, hey, you're taking your medications in 10 minutes, but you just connected to your car, pop your reminder right then to say, hey, did you take your meds? Go back inside. One of those set of features. There's a handful of these things we want to do. Now, also, time zones are incredibly difficult from a programming standpoint. It doesn't sound hard until you actually try to solve the problem. But we do account for, you've got on a plane, you have flown for 12 hours, you turn your phone back on, and now you're in a completely different time zone. What do? We are addressing that one. I don't know that we've addressed it correctly yet, but we are addressing it, and we're going to find out soon. We'll modify it as we get user feedback for it.
Yeah, so I used to run operations for a company called Travel Card. So we were a hub service provider with all the pharmaceutical France. And adherence and compliance and refill was a huge deal for branded medicine. So your concept of working with the hospital discharge is a fantastic model. One of the things I did for Novartis was their transplant products. And so transplant, you got to get that's a pile of medicine you got to take all the time. You have to take them. Sort of organ failure. Have you considered whether it's the hub service providers or directly with pharmaceutical manufacturers, having them, from a business standpoint, having them sponsor or pay you to do what you're doing? Because again, it's important to them to have people compliant. They're always looking for those adherence solutions, whether it's messaging back to them that here's our average refills, and or bringing their copay cards that we always provided for offsetting copays at the pharmacy, delivering those copay messages back through your platform. That might be an avenue to.
And we're in a spot where we can make that kind of pivot.
Yeah.
Fairly well. So I'd love to talk more.
Yeah, let's talk more.
Absolutely, because it absolutely and we didn't show it now. It's one of the things we're coming out with is the gamification of the system. The dashboard with adherence, but it's not as easy. What we want to be careful about is if we give you you've taken your pills on time for 100 days straight, and then you don't take it one-on-one, that accidentally cause you to be less adherent now, because how are you ever going to get that 100-day streak back? Right? So we've got to seriously think about the gamification of this, but we know that these type of things absolutely. My wife has complained that she does not get a gold star for taking medications for the week. And actually, I think what our first initial concept is gonna be is a set of stars. You know, every time you get, if you're compliant for an entire week, we give you a star, you can track that, share that if you want. Some people will not, won't ever share their information. Some people are proud that they are managing their medications and they want the world to know that they're on top of it. And we want to give those people the ability to say, I'm on top of it. We've also learned, by the way, that when your doctor asks you the question of, did you take all your medications? That's like asking how the weather is. They're not listening to you. They know you're not taking your medications like you're supposed to. So anyway.
Any other questions?
I'm curious how it clears, like, how the system clears if they took their medications for a day when you're not with them. He obviously told you, someone who's not gonna text you, when you pull those boxes out, is it automatically cleared? Do you have to physically clear that?
So today we're our software only system. And you have to go in, somebody has to go in and say, yes, I took the medications. That is the only gap.
The hardware isn't present yet.
It's not present. yet.
Is the goal to have that to where you can only take, for instance, many people have AM, noon, PM, sometimes 4 times a day, you know, it can come up at all kinds of varying time periods that would clear that message or alert within a certain period of time, or something like that.
So the initial version of this had the hardware piece, locked the door until it was time. And then when it was time, it monitored the door. Started sending out those messages to everybody, just like I described here. But it would not stop sending those messages until that door was lifted. Now, we could talk about sensors, about moving the medication out. We actually think a camera embedded inside the system and some AI to recognize the empty pill well would work better. But yeah, that's the original concept, because that, especially somebody who's struggling with dementia, that's the spot where, and we've had, though it works pretty well, by the way. So the marking your medication is taken, you're occasionally going to get this wrong. And what happens is you're sitting, you're watching TV, you're really into it, and that stupid thing has gone off on your watch for the 3rd time now. And you're like, I'm gonna give it in just a second, take my medications, you mark them taken, and then you get to take. Here's what's interesting about that. That sits in your pill case is nobody throws their medication away. That you have spent so much time and effort and money to get that medication, and you valued it. Nobody throws the medication away. Well, this means especially if you have a caregiver, and that caregiver comes and gives you your next pill case and takes that one away. It's a moment where you say, you didn't take Tuesday night's meds, what's going on? They're like, oh, I marked it and forgot. Like, well, don't mark the meds taken until you've taken them. I mean, the nice thing about coming around every 10 minutes again, you know, came around, you finally, you know, 2 or 3 minutes later, you took your medications, but forgot to mark it in the thing. 6 minutes later, it beeps. And let you know.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for being here. It's a really exciting opportunity, and you'll be around for a few minutes afterwards. Anybody have some questions? I guess Randy, another member of the team. Yeah, if you have any questions, is anybody else here?
Danny is right there.
Okay.
Just reaching out, trying to do some physical sales for us.
Okay, so thank everybody for being here, and we're gonna turn it back over to Pam.